Welcome to another day in the Haven, dreamy people. Today, we welcome debut author Joretta King, who's here to discuss her memoir, Bleach On Colored Clothes. Joretta enjoys reading books about self-esteem, healing, and love, and decided to write one about her life, which is truly, truly inspiring. Her book, Bleach On Colored Clothes, started as a childhood diary and her observations at that age. As she worked through her struggles, she used writing as a tool of self-reflection and healing. She's written a beautiful story about her journey, and I'm happy to have her on the show to talk about that process. So, with that, join me in welcoming author Joretta King.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Haven.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it is a true pleasure to meet you and to have you on the show to talk about your book, to talk about your process for writing it. But first, I want to start with that book title because I love your book title.
Thank you.
Talk to me about it. How did you come up with that title?
It came to me in a dream, honestly, and I've told that story over and over again. When I first started writing and I was so focused on a title, and I worked with two different titles. They were just working titles, and I really wasn't satisfied, 100% satisfied with those titles. And so I just said, you know what, just leave the title alone for a minute, because the class I was in at that time, the instructor said sometimes the title will come to you at the end when you finish. So I just said, you know what, leave it alone. And then one night, went to bed, had this dream. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and in the dream I was sitting on the floor sorting through clothes, and there was bleach all over the clothes, and I woke up and something said, which I say God said, that's the title of your book.
Wow.
Bleach On Colored Clothes.
That is an amazing story.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, because I am so curious to hear your answer to this question. When did you start writing it?
I started in a diary. I started writing my diary at 5, 6 years old, just jotting down things as I experienced, witnessed things happening, and just was journaling at that age, you know, just writing in the diary.
Not, of course, realizing at 5 years old that you were writing a memoir
absolutely.
at the age that you are
yes,
now.
Yes, yeah.
So you started writing, was it a therapeutic kind of thing for you at that age, or was it writing just to be, you know, a childhood's curiosity?
More curiosity at that time, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So was there anything that inspired it, or, well, you were journaling, so you were writing about things that were happening in your personal space as a child?
Yes.
Okay, and then to some degree it was therapeutic.
It was.
So at what point did you decide that, you know what, I'm going to take this journal, this body of work, and turn it into a memoir?
Throughout my life, that was always something that was in my spirit, that I was supposed to write a book. And there were times when I didn't want to do it. I said I wasn't going to do it, but it was just that nagging feeling that just said, you have to write this book. So I didn't know, and there were stages. So when I first took it seriously and wanted to write it was probably around 2012, and I just couldn't make it happen. There were just so many obstacles in the way, and I just couldn't do it. And I said,
first of all, I'm intrigued that something that you started writing at 5 years old, in you said 2012?
Yeah, 2012 was when
you pulled that from the archives. You held on to those writings, and you know, so far you've been talking about how a higher authority has, you know, basically entered in and had some input into your whole process, from, you know, naming the book to writing, always wanting to write as a young person, and then it just all kind of came together. So that's very intriguing, interesting, and inspiring as well.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
So in 2012, you took that collection and said, I'm going to put this together. And did it start as a memoir for you, or were you looking at other genres of writing?
It was always a memoir.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I didn't realize there was going to be more I had to say. I was like, okay, this is it. Now is the time. Let's go ahead and get it done. But again, had some obstacles, things happened, and I just felt like I just wasn't ready, and I just put it aside and said, you know what, I'm not ready to do this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But okay. So let's talk about that for a minute, because you really open up in this book. You really, really show your soul, your spirit, your experiences, and that's a frightening place, or can be a frightening place to be. What gave you the strength and the courage to put pen to paper, take those stories, complete your memoir, and put it out in the world for everyone that you know to read and hear and experiencing it as they're reading it?
It came from reading other memoirs written by other people. One of my favorite authors, Toni Morrison, one of her quotes is, if there's a book that you want to read that hasn't been written yet, then you must write it. And I've always read memoirs by other people whose lives were similar, who went through similar things I'd gone through, and just wanted to see, well, how did they overcome that? And so I got courage from them, but then it was always that still small voice that just would not go away, that just kept telling me, you have to do this. You have to write it. Yeah.
Okay. And so the idea of what people might think of me if they read this wasn't something that really entered your headspace.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh, it was.
Okay. But you trudged on.
I did.
You didn't change the names to protect the innocent.
I changed some. Yeah, some of the names have been changed.
You did.
Yeah.
Some of the names have been
Yeah.
changed, but people will relate it to you.
Yes.
In your circle
Excuse me.
of
Yes.
people. And the reason why I asked, did you think of other genres? Because I'm sure that there are instances where, I mean, I think as writers, there's a piece of us that are in our characters already. And of course, there are characters that are based on other people that we know, of course. So it's easy to get lost behind the characters, right? But in a memoir, you're putting yourself on Front Street, right then and there. So I applaud you for having the courage to open up and to do that and really just kind of expose it. And tell me why. Tell me why. What inspired you to do this book, publish it, put it out to the world? What is it that you want to see come out of that experience?
Thanks for asking that. So, of course, you know, my book is based on a lot of trauma and a lot of dysfunction, a lot of abuse. And I've spoken to so many women and men who have gone through the same thing, but they can't talk about it, or they don't feel comfortable or feel like they have the freedom to talk about it. And by sharing my story, I see that it has already given other people who have contacted me privately and told me their stories about things they have gone through and how now they want to share their story, they want to tell what happened. And that typically happens whenever someone comes out with something that is looked at to be shameful or disgraceful, embarrassing. And for me, it was liberating. It was a sense of relief of carrying that burden, carrying that shame. And also, you know, I also go into telling the story of how I repeated some of that same behavior. So that was something that I thought was different from other books. Not that everybody has to repeat or will repeat the abuse, but I felt like by being that transparent and telling that story of how I repeated some of those same things that were done to me allows other people to, like they say, you know, break those chains.
Yes. That's very, very powerful. The self-awareness that comes with that is truly, truly inspiring. I don't want to dilute that point at all. Not just as a writer, but as a reader reading it, because we all fall short, right? We all make mistakes, and sometimes we make the same mistake over and over again. But where where it comes to a place and a sense of self-awareness is usually the place of healing.
Right.
Like if you can be aware of it and own it, then you can do something about it. But if you just keep denying it, pushing it off, then it's very difficult, if not challenging, to try to change the course.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about your process for writing.
Okay.
So you said in 2012 that's when you decided, okay, I'm going to look at this seriously, and I'm going to make this into a book. And when did you publish it?
It was May of this year. Okay.
And so was there something significant about the timing?
Not really significant. It was just it just needed to be done.
So the pandemic, COVID, it had nothing to do with why you're like, life is short, I need to get my book out there. Nothing like that.
No,
it was just
because there was still that part of me that was still wanting to delay it and procrastinate.
Okay.
And say, well, you know what? Why don't you wait until this happens? Because I think, and that's with anything, we tend to want to wait until the timing is right, and there really is no right timing.
Yeah, and sometimes there are things that happen in our life that causes that shift to moving to, you know what, I got to get this done. And that's why I brought up, the pandemic, COVID.
Right.
So for some people that
It
was
did.
a driver.
Right.
But I'm happy to hear that. No, I mean, it was your own time clock, and you just decided this is when I'm going to do it, and May was the time that it came out and blessed the world.
Yes.
So we appreciate that. So
thank you.
Your process, I'm very intrigued to find out the answer to this question, because you wrote it at such a young age. In 2012, you looked at your writings, and I'm assuming that you added more flavor to it. So you whereas you were telling it from a young teenage mind or young person, child's mind on up through to how old were you when you finished? When you stopped writing in your journal, how much material did you have?
Gosh, I was probably. I wrote in my journal all the way up until I was about 19, 20.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So you went back from 5 to 19, those years, and then you just, from the age that you are now, and I'm not going to ask you to divulge your age, from the age that you are now, of course, you've gone through life experiences as an adult, and you're looking back on this, and so you colored it with some more bleach, and then came up with the finished product. So what was the process that you used in delving into your memoir and getting it to completion?
I found this amazing book in the thrift store, and it's by an author named Ralph Keyes, called The Courage to Write.
Okay.
And I was trying to, when I was in a writing class, we were told that we need to obviously stick to a certain schedule every day and make sure we write that same time every day. Try to find whatever place gives you, the creativity to write, or because some people can write anywhere. And some people say, oh, I need to go by the lake, or I need to go in a cabin, or I need to lock myself in a room. So I was trying to find out, okay, well, how can I commit to that schedule every day when, of course, things happen.
Right.
And I found that the best time for me to write was really late at night, because I didn't have all the noise, from wanting to answer my phone or respond to text message or email, or have